So this is the second year of Hearthstone. This is the year of the what? The Kraken, I think is when Old Gods came out. And there should be a third video. So make sure you subscribe if you like these type of videos. All cards are rated on their merit and constructed unless specified otherwise. All cards are rated in regards to the time of their reveal. Some cards get better or worse with future sets. True. Videos are retrospective into people's reaction to cards release. It's not meant to dunk on anyone. Yeah, we got to make that very clear because for some reason, people thought I was like shitting on people for just reacting to how good they thought it was cards. That's not what this is. It's just fun to look in hindsight, people's rating on cards as, you know, before the expansions even came out. In defense of the people in this video, they reviewed every single card of every single expansion. We're spot on 99% of the time. This video just documents the 1% of the misses.
I think Mukla Tyrant of the Veil will fit into a lot of mid-range decks. It might even fit into a lot of Zoo decks. And it obviously work a little bit better in some of the spell synergistic, generally mage decks. I think it's overall just a good, solid card.
Yo, I'm gonna be real here for a quick second though. I actually can't remember how much Mukla was played. Was he played at all? Right? I think the Mukla card was only good in Arena. Yeah, okay, he was dog. Okay. So Crypt thought he was a pretty solid card.
Great fit in decks like Flamewaker Mage, you know? Like any deck that just wants more spells in its hand, this is a great tool. You're getting a reasonable body, you're getting 2 spells, those spells have immediate impact. Like it's not unplayable. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him a lot.
So overall, in my opinion, I think it's a pretty solid mech card. It might see some
Firebat. Firebat wasn't in the last video. Hey, dude.
play, but I don't think it's going to see a lot of play.
There's a card that I'm actually tempted to put in the good category. Now, I originally compared this card with Ancient of Lore, the really good version. 7 mana 5/5, draw 2 cards. And I said, this is 6 mana 5/5, draw 2 bananas. I'm going to put this into the potential category.
This number, community points, is rating given to cards based on an open vote held Hearthstone at the time. Basically, public consensus on the card pre-release 0 to 100, the higher the better. Okay, I feel like this card, I feel like most of them are pretty spot on. Okay, hold on.
You know, I'm a little surprised it never took off. Just a tiny bit surprised. I tried Mukla, Tyrant of the Veil in a few decks, but yeah, it turned out to be not good enough to really make the 30th deck slot. However, with the Curator around the corner, maybe this is the beast that you want.
Spoiler, boys. The Curator did not help this card get played.
You're paying a 6 mana 5/5 for this effect. And if you compare it to like Emperor or Sylvanas or even Karen, for example, like which text would you rather have? If you compare it that way, it's kind of sucky, right?
Okay, so yeah, I think Amaz was really spot on here. People thought this was gonna be playable, but again, like, why would you want to play this when Sylvanas was in the game? Why would you play this when Karen's in the game? There was just the 6 costs. Like, this was not it.
It is the biggest common card out there, and it is good that the card is printed because new players are going to have the opportunity to craft a huge card if they feel like it takes a huge card in order to win games. And then they're going to waste their 40 dust, but that's good because it's a learning experience for them.
Faceless Behemoth. Yeah. Moving on to N'Zoth the Corruptor. Is this card good enough for Constructed?
Dude, I miss Reno so much.
I tend to think that 10 mana cards aren't. I think in Wild, I think Dr. Boom will be too slow. So that kind of gives you an idea of how good I think.
I should mention, by the way, in case you guys forgot, Reno reminded me right here. This was the first rotation ever. So we never really had an idea of what happens with Hearthstone when a standard rotation happens. Old God was the first time that happened.
So basically, I don't really expect this guy to see any play. I think he is too slow, but very cool. Honestly, the Old Gods are awesome. There's big epic minions. This effect doesn't quite do it for me. I think it's just a little bit too slow.
Any 10 mana card that doesn't
Bro, I can't with that one. That was crazy. Okay.
impact the board immediately is complete garbage.
I take back what I said. I wish I didn't bring up the standard rotation because it makes that review even worse.
Now, this minion, N'Zoth, he kind of is based on what died earlier in the game. He doesn't impact the board really. Like, filling the board with stuff is not really impacting the game. Impacting the game is like gaining life, putting a taunt, killing a minion. You just an immediate effect that basically affects the state of the board in a proactive sense.
So I think right now the card pool is too weak to support what this card does. I think in the future this card will see play. I think this card's going to see play in Wild, but in Standard I think the card pool is a little too weak to support the effect of this card. Maybe more cards will come out even in just this set that'll make this card extremely powerful.
You know, this could have been a spell, and this could have been like fine, but no, it is actually a 5/7 creature. Whether this is playable for other classes remains to be seen because we're losing Shredder. So we're just gonna give this a 9 out of 10, not a 10 out of 10 because it Really depends on the other cards that are going to be seen. But man, this already has an archetype. It already is playable in Paladin.
Yeah, it did.
You get what I mean?
N'Zoth was really good. N'Zoth was basically introduced at the start of the year, and he kept on seeing play because it turned out there was a lot of really good death battles. But it's cool that it's interesting that Amaz like was the only one that really thought this was going to be playable.
This weapon is really, really powerful. Some people say that, oh, because it's not 4 mana, it's not going to make a big enough impact. It'll make a big enough impact. The second hit is synchronized with a high attack minion spawning. That is like an immense tempo swing. It's immense.
And oh my god, the value of this card is like off the charts, right? And for the fact that like it's a 5 mana weapon that doesn't overload means that Fire Elemental can actually come down on turn 6. All right, we're gonna give this a very high rating and constructed.
I think the
God, dude, Amaz was cooking, guys. He was cooking until that moment.
card will see play just by merit that it's a weapon, and weapons are good, but I don't think it's going to be a card that people are going to be super thrilled about.
This card,
I legitimately can't remember, and this probably speaks to how powerful this card was, but this card didn't see play, right? This card was awful. I can't remember it being played, so it has to be bad. Okay.
Weapons are good, but I don't think it's
I
going
think
to be a
Firebath's
card
take
that
was like
people are gonna be
pretty good
super
though for
thrilled
what it
about.
was.
this card holds tremendous value in it. For 1 mana, more than Deathbite. It's a lot of value packed into one card, and I think it's quite good. Kind of a surprise that Hammer of Twilight is one of the fewest cards I ended up seeing around. That it was tough to fit in all of the good cards into the deck, and also Doomhammer existed.
Hammer of
Yep.
Twilight, I don't think it's will see play at all. Not only does it compete with Doomhammer, but the 4/2 minion that you get is just not that strong. It's too easy to trade into, it's just not that good.
This is a card that
Raynad is back. All right, Raynad is so back after that one. It's crazy how like one of them is always like against the rest of them, and they ended up being right.
that Trump got to release that was given to Blizzard, and he kind of looked at it in a fairly optimistic light. In like 60 to 70% of the time, you have a positive or neutral effect from the battle cry. Yes, you can draw like 3 cards of Nourish, but you could also Soulfire itself, basically paying 5 mana and removing 2 cards from your hand, and that's it.
It's sad to see the card that I previewed rated this low. It's time to reveal my card, and boy have I been given a doozy of one. Servant of Yogg-Saron. I kind of hyped it up using best case scenarios, but it turns out when I went back for a second check, there were too many disastrous outcomes. It's bad.
Overall, it's like
yeah.
probably not good enough, but if it is good enough, I'm very upset with Blizzard.
And we have Tentacles for Arms. This is a warrior weapon.
Oh my god. Okay, this card sucked. I think it was like tried for a little bit because like people tried to do like a mid-range variant with this card in it, but yeah, people realized pretty quickly on average this card was atrocious.
And we have Tentacles for Arms. This is a warrior weapon, if you were curious, but you're probably not that curious because the card is abysmal.
In control matchups, if you can get 6 wings of Tentacles for Arms off, and pay the 15 mana for it, and then get the Tentacles for Arms back in your hand, I think it's worth it, if you can do that.
Oh my god. When he said you can get 6 damage for 15 mana over 6 turns, I think my brain just like melted. This card sucked. But I will say, it's funny, like I remember back in the day, people thought this was actually going to be like a good card because people just thought that this was going to slide into Control Warrior and just be like, oh, you have infinite value with your weapons. Of course this will be good.
A lot of things you can do to trigger this guy. Whether it's good enough just by itself, just because it's like a lot of stats, probably is. I don't know if it'll be like broken enough for constructed, but maybe in the wild format even. I don't think it'll like break the game or anything, but it is a pretty solid arena card, I think.
I mean, I don't want to write this card off right away, but I think this is just too weak. I don't know. It can be good. It's just like off the top, it's weak. I don't know. I don't think it's quite good enough to make the cut right now.
3 mana 1/5 is not what we're really looking for in terms of creatures. I don't want a conditional thing that gets better, and if I don't meet the requirements, it doesn't. So we're gonna give Darkshire Councilman a 2. Yeah, not too exciting actually.
I'm very surprised to see Darkshire Councilman at this high a ranking. First of all, base stats are very poor. If you were to summon 2 cards with it on the same turn, then you're getting a 3 mana 3/5. If you do that with Questing Adventurer, you're getting a 3 mana 4/4. And Questing Adventurer saw absolutely no play whatsoever. And that actually hit with spells too. Anywho, this card takes a bit too long to get set up. Very similar to Questing Adventurer. You know, I don't. When I made this review, I didn't actually understand.
Okay, before I even hear what Trump had to say here, okay? I think at the time when people reviewed this card, they didn't realize that 5 health was pretty annoying to deal with on turn 3. You drop Flame Imp, you drop your Voidwalker or whatever, and then you play this. Yeah, it's a 3-mana 1/5 for 1 turn, but the second that card lived for 1 turn, it was absolutely disgusting.
Understand the term summon, but even if I did understand the term summon, I probably still would have called it then. It turns out I learned something really important. 3 mana, 5 health is really, really good. That combined with the Imp Gang boss and the Possessed Villager kind of pushed Dark Councilman into a really good card.
So Warlock is a class that does have the ability to spawn a bunch of stuff thanks to just drawing a bunch of cards with his hero power or things like Forbidden Ritual. So I would not be surprised to see this show up in a board flood style Warlock deck as a powerful individual threat.
I mean, if you have 10 mana, you can play this and heal for 20, and that's not too bad. But in every other situation, it's kind of bad. Kind of really bad. So I really don't think it's that great.
Forbidden Healing is the kind of card that just ends the game against Face Hunter on its own. This is a powerful card. All the Forbidden cards are much better than they look, I think. It's a card I would play at least one of in Control Paladin, maybe 2. Maybe it's that good. I don't know.
I think Raynad was right. I feel like Control Paladin, when it was played like 1 copy of it. And Control Paladin was like good because Control Paladin had Tyrion into a N'Zoth.
Next up, we have Cho'Gall.
That's a difficult one, though.
I think is going to be the next Dr. Boom. I think this card is crazy strong. Maybe I'm overestimating it a little bit, but to me, this reads play a 7/7 and kill one of your opponent's minions for just the cost of a little bit of life. I'm excited to see this card see play. I think it's going to be a really, really, really strong card in some sort of like mid-range tempo-y zoo sort of Warlock decks. I think it's going to be really strong. It's definitely on my top 5 strongest cards of the expansion so far list.
Cho'Gall is a card that seems great until you look at all the spells of a Warlock. Spell list isn't that impressive. I'm almost tempted to shake the boat by calling Cho'Gall a bad card, but I'm just going to put it into the potential list.
No, Trump. Wow, that's hearing Firebat's analysis on that was kind of crazy. For the record, by the way, Firebat was the first world champion winner of Hearthstone of all time. And it's cool, like hearing his reviews in hindsight. This card was not Dr. 7. The problem with Cho'Gall ended up being a couple things. 1, this was not a neutral card. This was for Warlock only. 2, playing a 7-mana 7/7 was not good. We already had War Golem. This card sucked. And I can understand, again, why Firebat thought this was going to be good. I honestly, I can understand it from like that perspective. But it's crazy to think about, like, this is mana cheating. This is one of the best mana cheating cards in a sense. At the time, and it just was bad.
Now this is what I was talking about when I was mentioning some really crappy cards. Doom is a really crappy card.
Crip's delivery there was so good.
Big dumb guy.
Right.
Needless to say, this card will see play everywhere. I wonder if someday we'll see an even better card.
Duskboar, 2 mana 4/1 beast. Then we have Silithid Swarmer, 3 mana 3/5, can only attack if your hero attack this turn. This is a very powerful rogue card because you can hero power on turn 2. Then a 3 mana 3/5 is ridiculous on a follow-up. Yeah, that's it. Good rogue card, kind of pointless otherwise.
Moving on to Silithid Swarmer, it's actually a very cool card. I like this a lot. A lot of people point to Rogue when they think about this card. And honestly, Rogue does need a 3-drop. Like, you're just playing like a naked SI agent on the board, and that always feels terrible because you want to get value out of all your cards. But Silithid Swarmer has insane stats. This is great. 3 mana 3/5 with your dagger that's going to be 4 damage. It's like a 3 mana Yeti. I actually think Silithid Swarmer might see a lot of play in that deck, but even outside of Rogue, you know, the Face Warrior deck, good old Raynad special. This guy would definitely see play in a deck like that as well.
I think if this card were in Rogue, the card would have been rated higher. Though, to be fair, for the most part, this probably will not see play in Rogue.
Dude, I'm baffled by this. Okay, that's crazy to hear in hindsight. I understand the perspective, though. Again, you got to remember, first rotation, 3 mana 3/5 is actually a really juicy stat line. The average for a 3-drop at the time was a 3/3. We didn't even, like, Spider Tank being a 3/4 was like, holy shit. So a 3/5, man, you're popping off there. A lot of you guys could probably guess this card did not see any play, but it's interesting. Like, I can understand why they would say that, though.
Now, if you look at that card, you would realize it kind of sucks a lot. The stats are very poor for the mana. At 9 mana, you need a high impact card. It does impact the board. It does impact the board, okay? It's not completely useless, but will it do enough? I would argue probably not. Soggoth the Slitherer is indeed a very interesting and very played card, in fact. So we thought, you know, it'll be a slow meta. I think in ladder right now we are 85 to 90% aggro or tempo or combo deck. And Soggoth just happens to be pretty good against aggressive and mid-range decks.
What? Wait. What video was this from? I'm pretty sure he was bad. That like a week after the release of the expansion. It's crazy to think how much the Hearthstone team valued can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. And to be fair, as far as I'm concerned, in Magic the Gathering, that's a pretty good text to have, right? So I can understand that. 9 mana 5/9 though. My God. Trash stats. And even if it had taunt, it reminds me of Trogzor from the GVG era.
Cthulhu dudes plus board control dudes are a good combination, and armor cards plus removal is a good combination. But this card is like armor plus Cthulhu dudes. It's not a good fit, really. I think it's just too awkward.
Very similar to Twilight Darkmender, I'm going to take a leap here,
weird.
and I'm going to call the Ancient Shieldbearer bad. That is because I cannot really imagine a Cthulhu deck in Warrior. Oh, should I make this bold call? That's dangerous. Should I move it up to has potential just because I'm scared? I'm gonna just go ahead and boldly call this card bad also.
10 armor is so much. 10 armor is so much. Plus, it's not a bad body by itself, right? So Super Shield Maiden.
Okay, that is wild, dude. That card was so good. It was so, Amaz is on point here. I think a lot of people at the time didn't think Cthulhu was going to be that good for Warrior. So when you look at this card, you're like, why am I playing this in Warrior? What's the point? But Cthulhu ended up being really good for Warrior. Like, it was, I think, the best deck for Warrior at the time. 10 armor back in the day of Hearthstone was a significant amount, and honestly kind of blows my mind in hindsight that like 10 armor in 2023 Hearthstone was like not as nearly as insane as it was.
Basically, draw this guy and you wait until you get a very good card, and then you play the card, and then you're pretty happy. I do expect this card will see a lot of play.
Oh my God, this is good. Why is this so good? You understand? People don't understand why this is so good. Because you can always just keep it in your hand, and if you don't want to play that, then don't play it, right? Just wait till another turn. But I cannot see how every single control deck is not going to play this.
Shifter Zerus. I think this card is good. Now granted, I think this card is only good in heavy control decks, which try to go really late game. I like the card, and I'm calling it good.
A little bit too slow to be good, but a very cool design. I love legendaries like this, very funny. I'm pretty sure it's a pretty terrible card, and I'm trying to be pretty open-minded with new cards, but I'm pretty sure it's really bad.
Dude, that is wild, man. Why? Okay, so Raynad's analysis was like pretty much what this is. Really bad card. It turned out just keeping a card in your hand that does nothing and just does nothing every single turn is bad. You'd rather have a card that you can play and actually interact with the board state. On average, this card sucked.
Probably the most broken arena card I've ever seen. In Constructed, it'll probably see some play just because the stats are so nuts.
It's going to be really difficult to deal with 7/7 on turn 4.
Pretty underrated, honestly. More people should be talking about this guy.
Whoa, that was fast. Okay. Flamewreathed Faceless. The 4-mana 7/7 meme was birthed from this card. This was the birthing, I was going to call it, of the card like this. I feel like where it really came down to was like you play Tunnel Trog, you follow it up with something else, and then you drop a 4-mana 7/7, and then people are like, holy shit, like how do I deal with this and the Tunnel Trog?
I've seen a lot of people dismissing this card. You know, it doesn't necessarily have great stats for 6. If this survives, you just get your win condition from your deck into your hand. I think this card is being slept on by a lot of people, and if you are playing a deck that is looking to end the game with one of these big 10 cost old gods, this is a card that I feel like you're almost certainly going to want to have in a lot of those versions of those decks.
Okay, to be fair, I understand where Killer is coming from, and especially at the time when they introduced all of the old gods, because all the old gods cost 10 mana. It's like the problem with the new updated version of Nat Pagal, where it's like it's at the start of your turn, And having something at the start of your turn is so much worse than having it at the end of your turn because it has to live.
I'm very tempted to call N'Zoth's First Mate a good card, but N'Zoth's First Mate is one of the best cards you can play on turn 1. Get a lot of value for that. Just tough for the warrior to back that up. An interesting card. I think it has a lot of potential.
So in a sense, this is 1 mana 1/1, summon a 1/1 charge minion. I am gonna give this a 5.
What the fuck? Yo, what? Yo, what? Yo, he knew. That's crazy. Okay, sorry.
10 in constructed.
You generally want a bigger weapon than that because most of the pirates scale off of a bigger weapon better than a small weapon. In terms of constructed, I kind of have some doubts, but it is one of those like super aggressive cards. With enough of them, it might actually be pretty damn good.
Honestly, 1 mana cards are just broken. I overvalue them if anything, but I think it's hard to overvalue them. When they do something, and this card does a lot, they're just so strong, man. You can't justify spending 2 mana to hero power down a card that they committed 1 mana to playing, and they still are left with a weapon. Like, I think this card's really, really strong. It will see play somewhere, and I don't know why people are not like talking about this more. 1 mana cards are nuts.
Okay, N'Zoth's First Mate, when it first got released, I don't know if it was like insane, but this card truly became an absolute like S tier card when Mean Streets of Gadsden came out. And it's funny because that's why I was like popping off with the Maz, because it's almost like a Maz knew that if you had Patch as the pirate in the game, like it'd be like the best card of the game.
Now you might look at it and be like, wow, 8 mana, 6/7, but when you kill something, you gain +2/+2. That's really cool. Nah, it's really not. No, it's not really cool at all.
In constructed, we can get a 6/7 for 6 mana. It's called Boulder Fist Ogre, and it's a basic card.
For the love of God, dust him. He's just terrible in so many ways. Moving on. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're absolutely right. This card sucked, dude. This card was so like the fact that this was printed after they had a little bit of a history of what was a good card in Hearthstone, like actually blows my mind. Like I don't know what they were thinking. Like oh my God. But now we get to see Yogg, dude.
So, yeah, I just have my fingers crossed that this card sees no competitive play, because if this is like, if the Yogg-Saron deck is a thing in tournaments, imagine like every third game in competitive play comes down to this coin flip on turn 10. That could get pretty dangerous because it's very volatile. But all in all, very cool card. I know I'm going to lose to it literally every single time it's played against me. I'm just going to hope that that's not very often. As far as constructed viability, probably not going to see too much is my guess. I hope that they would test this kind of card and make sure that it does not see competitive play. You know, if I get really upset at Hearthstone, which usually doesn't take too long, I might fall back on Yogg-Saron and try to, you know, just Yogg some people, ruin their day. Seems like it'd be pretty fun.
Basically, complete madness, complete chaos. It's gonna happen. Direct damage spells flying at all your other minions. Probably Yogg-Saron is going to die from his own battle cry. So it's just a complete mess, but it's really cool. Overall, Yogg-Saron is probably not going to see too much play, if any play at all, but maybe. We'll see. The craziness is going to be real, and I do expect out of all the dumb cards that are probably horrible, Yogg-Saron will have the most people trying to make it work.
Not really sure what's gonna happen. Who really can predict what this card's really gonna do? I guarantee you it's gonna see a lot of play though, so I'm pretty excited to see this card get cast.
Yogg-Saron Hope's End. Now, this card I'm going to say has potential. It certainly looks very random, but there have been spreadsheets and tables of statistics and math done on this card. It has potential. It's certainly a deck that can be made, and I could see being tournament caliber.
David, thank you for adding this, by the way. I think this actually really added a lot of context here. Guys, Yogg-Saron. Okay, Raynad must have been fucking losing his mind. Yogg-Saron ended up being the most played old god by a fucking mile. And it wasn't just because the card was extremely fun. The card was just good. If you had a card in the Yogg-Saron basically said 10 mana 7/5, just fucking don't lose the game at that point. And you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this card ended up being the best legendary for old gods. The card was so good that it basically ruined a tournament. I've done a whole video talking about it. David, you got to show the Monsanto clip for the World Championship at this point where he somehow just completely turns the table. The card was insane. Blizzard nerfed it, and I think it was a very good nerf. If Yogg-Saron cast a spell that ended up removing him from the board, it would stop casting spells. This card was just, this is in some people's mind like the pinnacle of Hearthstone, right? People love this card, man. Is it good for competitive Hearthstone? No. And we have literally a whole tournament and a video made from Disguised Toast talking about it. After the nerf, I feel like it's pretty fun.
Moving on to the America Summer Championship with one heck of a Yogg. That was amazing.
How did you feel as you were watching those spells resolve one by one?
I feel that that's not fair. I should have lost that game.
The card was bonkers. Like, that's basically what we're coming down to. The card was really good.
Hey guys, I just came back from the One Night in Karazhan Hearthstone party held in Los Angeles.
Now, mage spells are pretty good, but some of them are not so great. If you have a lot of spell synergies, like most of the tempo mage decks do, I think you're going to be generally quite happy with the results of this card. I think, you know, might see some constructed play out of the card. I doubt it, but I think it's possible.
I think this card is deceptively good. Not quite good enough for me to call it good yet. I'm not sure if it fits into tempo mage more, if it fits into a control mage. In arena, this card's going to be good.
Babbling Book is a 1-mana 1/1, a little bit too random for Tempo Mage's taste, and 1-mana 1 is definitely not as strong as Mana Worm, right? Like, we don't really want to play too much 1-mana drops.
If you're versing a lot of aggro, which you tend to do in Hearthstone, it's going to be pretty bad a lot of the times. And even against control, 50% of the time, the random spell is not great. So I don't think this card's playable. I don't think it's going to see any play in Mage. I think it's pretty low-tier quality card.
So this is a card a lot of people have been, they haven't really been fans of it. They've been talking it down like, oh, you get a crappy spell most of the time, and it's only a 1-mana 1/1. But just like with N'Zoth's first mate, like when that card came out, everyone was like shit-talking that card too. And I said, like, any 1-mana card that has a reasonable effect is super good. Like, at some point, it will become nuts. 1 mana is just so fundamentally OP. Most people, when they do set reviews, they give you all this ambiguous language like, oh, this could be good in these situations and this, but it's a little weak in this regard. And it's like, it's all these like non-committal statements, you know? And it really makes it easy to never be wrong, even if you're never actually right in your set reviews. Babbling Book is damn good. It replaces itself. You get a 1-mana 1/1. I think it's just a good card. I think this is grossly underrated, actually.
Okay, wow, that's, well, look at this shirt, holy moly. Okay, I mean, if you watched the World Championship with Pavel, you understood what this card could do. And even before that, this card was actually just good because the average spell you got was beneficial for you. As a 1-mana 1/1, it had the potential to give you like a 3rd fireball. It had the potential to give you another frostbolt. Like it was just a good card.
So you're probably thinking, yeah, I think I've seen this effect before, and you'd be right. There is Arcane Explosion. It is the first time in Hearthstone that there is a power creep over a class card. I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's interesting. I like the card, so I'm not going to complain too much. I just wanted to point that out.
You know, the effect's only good really against Zoo, and other than that, it has a really narrow range of matchups where it's actually useful to deal 1 damage to all enemy minions, or even deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. Has a pretty narrow field of matchups, so unless the meta is really predictable, I don't see this card being too great.
It's basically slightly better Arcane Explosion. I feel like with Lightning Storm, this card will not see play. And with Elemental Destruction, too. It's just, you can't run that many small damage AoE cards. It turns out that it's a combination of both.
Okay, before we read Trump's re-review here, okay? The Maelstrom Portal was really interesting because they're absolutely, Crip is absolutely right. Like, this is just a power creep of Arcane Explosion, which did not see any play as far as I remember throughout the entire history of Hearthstone. So when you look at Maelstrom Portal, it's the same thing, but now you're getting a 1-cost minion. Why would that be good? Well, here's the thing, boys. Shaman had a couple of reasons for you to want to play this. A, their totem summoned a spell power totem. Because of another weapon in this set called Spirit Claws, you had a much bigger reason to run spell damage into your deck, which made this card even better.
That it's a combination of both focusing more on spell damage, which makes it a 2 damage to all enemy minions, and summoning 1-cost minion actually being a big deal. That make this card a 5-star card and help define the mid-range meta.
This card's really cool. If you have one spell damage on the board in your Shaman deck, you're getting a 2-mana Consecrate, so your card is broken. And a 1/1 minion, or a 1-drop minion, which is great. Like, I'm excited to play with it. This is way more powerful in Shaman than it would be in any other class, because your hero power, at some point in the game with your control deck, at some point you're going to get spell damage, right? Yep. So as soon as you get spell damage, this card becomes nuts. Priest is not in a good spot, right? Personally, I think some class does have to be the worst all the time, and personally, I would like Priest to be the worst deck in the game all the time, but Priest shouldn't be as bad as it is now, right? Like, even, I think Priest should have like a 49% win rate if the other decks are at 50. I don't think Priest should be like 35% win rate or whatever it is right now. I think Priest definitely needs help right now. With that said, instead we have Purify.
This is the savior of Priest printed by Blizzard.
Silences a friendly minion and draws you a card. And it costs 2 mana. And it silences only a friendly minion. And it's common. And it's a Priest card.
Imagine the most beautiful flower in the world, and then a pigeon flew by and shit on it. That's basically Purify. Don't play it. 0 stars. Next card.
Brodan famously commented on this card.
I always like making my own minions worse.
And he said it so incredulously. As is, this card doesn't have enough application, and it's a bad card. And in Arena, it's really bad since you can't combo it.
At the time, the card was awful. That being said, there was actually a time period, I can't remember how much after it was when this card was released, where like it did kind of see play. Maybe it was on Goro. Like there was a moment in time where Purify was actually not the worst thing in the world anymore, because there was what was it? It was like that big plant guy, right? Razor Jaw. I don't know his name. That card actually made Purify not a horrible card. But at the time, bro, I spoke about Boogeymonster earlier, like how they printed that card. It blows my mind that the Hearthstone team at the time was like, yeah, man, this card's gonna be good.
In Constructed, you can probably make use of this card, but I don't know if it fits in the aggro shaman.
I'm just gonna leave this here for this
deck, and if it doesn't fit in the aggro shaman deck, it's probably not that relevant to the game. Probably won't see too much Constructed play, if any, but a nice little arena card there.
I think this is a little bit too fringe, and I don't think it's gonna be worth it. So I think it should be like a 1 star.
So I don't want to discount this card and say that this card's bad. I just don't think it'll see play. I think it's a good standalone card, but doesn't have the tools to really make it work yet.
This card's super exciting. It's a card that I don't think has a place right now, but it's one of those cards that moving forward, as more and more expansions comes out, at some point it gets stupid good, right? It's so powerful. It's one mana for 9 damage. It's just a hell of a card.
Okay, I'm gonna give Raynad some credit there because he was the only one to really compliment of how good this card is. Dude, this card was fucked. Okay, this card was fucked. Games were virtually decided on Spirit Clause 1 into rolling the Spell Power Totem. If you got the Spell Power Totem on turn 2, the game was basically over. Which is mind-blowing, because if you even tried to fight back, you had to think about if you develop anything, Spirit Clause just kills it, and they're still developing something past it. But even if you somehow developed the board, you probably didn't deal with the Spell Power Totem because they kept killing your minions, and then they Maelstrom Portal you. During Karazhan, Shaman was miserable. And this is not even considering Tuskar Totemic. You guys remember that card before it was changed? Oh my god.
This card is insane. The Beast Druid deck is going to be built so that you survive until you can cast Menagerie Warden, at which point you are going to get so much value. Play Stranglethorn Tiger on turn 5, and then you play Menagerie Warden. Wow.
This one's really interesting. Druid has ramp. So now you're thinking that like, oh my God, like the potential with this card is so insane, but it's absolutely crazy how little this saw play. If you don't have a beast, you're not wanting to play a 6 mana 5/5. Also, yeah, you got ran over before turn 6. Why would you play this when you could just play Shaman?
So that was clearly a 5-star rating, and I think this was the card that I might have thought was one of the strongest cards in the set. Ended up being not really that powerful because the Beast Druid deck didn't see that much play. So Menagerie Warden actually ends up getting a post-reflection 2-star rating. This card's one of the best cards in the set, I think.
Okay, I just want to make this very clear. Very clear. In my opinion, this is, other than Implosion, the worst card Hearthstone has ever designed. Okay.
I was to say there's a lot of potential for this card to pull out something really good.
It's probably the best card in the expansion, in my opinion, because when you get something like a Sylvanas or Karen or even Ysera or Rag, like there's so many options.
I can't wait to see Raynad's reaction to this.
Mid-range or control deck, you're gonna keep that in mind. It's so good, 5 stars.
I hate this card. Yes, it's stupidly good. Yes, it's obviously going to be good with death rattles and static effects, and you're going to play it in your N'Zoth decks. If you put Yusharge in your deck, it doesn't pull it out of your deck. It summons a copy. So if Yusharge is the only other thing in your deck, you play Barnes, you get the 1/1 Yusharge, and then that at the end of your turn makes a 10/10 Yusharge. So then on turn 3 or 4, you're getting a 15/15 of stats or something ridiculous, you know, like, well, most people's feedback is like, yeah, it's good with these cards and these effects and in these scenarios, I'm excited for it, and then they move on. But you shouldn't really be excited for it because it's so random. And randomness is not bad, but I made an entire video about how early game randomness is bad, and if somebody coins out a Barnes on turn 3, and they roll a Cairn Bloodhoof or a Tyrion off of it, I uninstall the game.
Dude, true, man. All right, Barnes is, oh my God. Okay, but without going like too much in detail here, Barnes just as a card is a really horrible design because the 4-mana card on the spot could decide the outcome of the game, right? The difference of you summoning like a Savannah Highmane versus like a shitty beast was ginormous, right? Barnes also enabled a lot of fucking degen priest decks in the future, and this card was so fucking good, by the way, that in Wild it was still so dominant until they finally nerfed the card to 5 mana. This is one of the worst design cards of all time in Hearthstone. Big thanks to Zealous Demon for his video. Made gathering footage of the section most easier. Shout out to Zealous Demon. Bro, we still have 60 minutes for this.
Okay,
Let's go.
Fine. You guys can see the scruffy guy.
It's not high impact enough for Hunter to play this card because you're going to have other options at 5 mana, such as Knuckles, who I think is also an auto include. Yeah, it's a pretty good card. I mean, the numbers are big and the mana cost number is not very big. Yep.
Knuckles! I was actually surprised to rate this card 4 stars. When I first looked at it, I was like, 3/7 for 5 mana. It falls under my rating of like a good statted minion. But here's the thing. Knuckles benefits like double with hand buff mechanics. You're gonna punch minions, and then you're going to also punch face. Good stuff.
Why do you want to hit minions in the first place? If you use Knuckles to hit the hero, you might as well be playing a Tiger instead. But at the end of the day, I think this is a little bit too cute. I think this is still a good card though, but it's a little bit too cute. So I'll give it a 2 stars, because 2 stars is the ranking we give for situational cards.
This one was a tough one.
Oh God, give me a sec before we get there, Trump. Jesus Christ. Okay, they built the whole expansion for the Grimy Goons around the hand buff concept. For those of you who played during Mean Streets of Gadgeson, by the way, kind of shit. Knuckles, with the concept in mind that hand buffing was going to be really good, was actually not the worst thing in the world, because yeah, this is a 5-mana 3/7. But by the time you actually play it, there's a potential that it's a much bigger minion that not only trades for the board, but also damages your face. But Amaz was right.
This one was a tough one for me to rate 2 stars. Ultimately, Life Tap, Thought Steal, Arcane Intellect all outclass it.
Like, see, like, I don't know if you even play this in your Reno deck. Maybe you do.
Oh man, this one stings, dude. This one hurts.
So bad. It's possible that it's worth it anyway because you get a chance of getting the legendary Reno cards. But
now, why I think this one is the best one of the cycle of all the draw cards is because Mage, Priest, and Warlock cards are the best cards to discover. Okay, so I would actually give this a 3 stars. Like, you would play this. Or strongly consider it when you're building a Reno deck.
The best deck in the game for a very long time there for a hot minute was anything related to Pirate Warrior, okay? Or anything to do with pirates. A lot of the other decks were just tier 2 to anything that you did with pirates. So, but they didn't know that at the time. We have to make that very clear. Kabal Courier, though, ended up being a really good card for the Cabal. It was played in Priest, it was played in Warlock, it was played in Mage.
Obviously, this card is absolutely crazy strong. Just, you know, the raw stats, it's basically a 7-mana 10/11. That's huge. That's like craziest level of stats in the late game. I think all the gang bosses, this being one of them, will see some form of play, and I imagine this will be in a lot of decks.
it's a big vanilla dude, which takes your entire turn to play, and then he lets you spend another entire turn to play another big vanilla dude, and then you wait a third turn, and then that big vanilla dude that you played gets to attack. It's just too slow. I just don't see this being played much.
Don Honcho. That is a very powerful card because it's statted very aggressively. So Don Honcho, if you live to survive to play Don Honcho and the card it buffs, you're getting 7 mana for 10, 11 worth of stats. There weren't that many aggressive cards printed. In fact, I can't even think of a single aggressive card.
Okay, Don Honcho sucked ass. All right, I don't want to hear anybody in my comment section or in the chat right now telling me this card was played. This card sucked. Let's talk about this real fast. I did a video a while ago called The Best Legendary in Hearthstone, which was basically like King of the Hill format. Now, I called Patches the Pirates the best legendary of all time in Hearthstone, right? This is the nerf version of it, right? Like it still is played in Wild, and it is very, very good. It is very, very good. I cannot understate how powerful Patches the Pirate was in Standard. It was fucking insane. I cannot tell you how excited I am to watch these reviews.
Patches the Pirate. With Patches the Pirate, when you play your turn 1 N'Zoth's first mate, you're not only getting a 1/1, you're also getting another 1/1 with charge, and you're getting in 1 damage with that. Patches the Pirate is like your opponent starts at 27 health instead of 30.
If you just have like 4-ish plus pirates in your deck, it's just actually really good. It's a pretty good card.
Oh my god, this card is going to tilt me more than like anything else in this expansion. Is the card good? Yes. It may single-handedly make Tempo Rogue a actual deck. It's powerful. I'll see playing every pirate deck moving forward. It's an inherently broken effect. There's a reason that they've avoided printing this card at the same time Ship's Cannon was in the format. Patches is strong. Patches is super strong.
So let me explain
Holy
this why
fuck,
it is
reading
a
these
5-star
comments, bro.
card. Patches the Pirate doesn't cost you a card because you play it from your deck. That is really, really strong. Like, imagine if Wisp draws you a card. That would be the most stupid card ever. That's a 0-mana Novice Engineer. This is a 0-mana 1/1 charge. Draws you a card.
Some people, lots of people, mostly the masses, although pro players mostly got this right, were like, whatever, it's an extra 1/1, who cares? Turns out, extra 1/1, really, really important.
And I think there's actually a really, really big problem with the meta right now. This fucker is in every deck. And this is in every deck because it is the worst designed Hearthstone card of all time. Every single deck can play Patches. The best version of every single deck, in my opinion, moving forward through Kobolds will be Patches. What are some good decks, Rain? Here's a Tempo Rogue list that's solid. Tier 1 deck. It's an excellent deck. Okay, I mean, what's another good deck? Warlock got a lot of new tools. It got a cool, like, Spellstone to gain life with. It got Skull of Manon, blah, blah, blah. Oakenheart, all these sick cards. Well, the best Warlock deck's actually just Zoo. And, you know, of course, Warlock doesn't have weapons, but let's put Pirates in it anyway, just because we can. Because Patches is so well balanced that the best 3-drop in the game is actually South Sea Captain in a deck with no other Pirates. Well, okay, I mean, Zoo has always been a good deck, right? So, I mean, it's not that surprising that it's good after it got a couple new tools. That's fine, right? It's metagame safe. What about Druid? Druid got some cool cards. It got Twig. Let's build a cool Druid deck. Let's play Arcane Tyrant, and Ultimate Infestation's so broken, and there's all these good cards and tools. It's a good deck. You know, it's better. Pirates. This is the best Druid deck. Play some Pirates and shit. Okay, I mean, I'm being a little unfair, right? I've listed a few classes that already had archetypes that took advantage of patches, archetypes that pretty much has gotten new tools and were already strong. What about a deck like Hunter that never saw play before, right? I mean, it got so many cool new options, right? I mean, there's like Flanking Strike now. What's the best Hunter card that it got in the new expansion? Well, actually, it's just Candle Shot, because you needed a way to enable fucking South Sea Deckhand. This is the best Hunter deck. You know what Mage is good at? Pirates. You play fucking Pirates in everything. You play Corridor Creeper in everything because you have Patches, and Patches enables Corridor Creeper. Do you think Recruit Warrior is good? No, Pirates. Like, you do it with everything. Like, and props to Blizzard, right? I mean, they made every class playable because every class is the same deck. I think this needs to get addressed, and I think the problem is not Corridor Creeper, but I think the problem is Patches. Something needs to change about that card. It needs to, like, die at end of turn or something. I don't know.
I think in a standard format, Patches the Pirate might have been the most impactful legendary of all time. Might have been. Like, I was talking about Yogg, but Patches ended up being like insane. And when we did that like best legendary video, I didn't realize the card wasn't nerfed until Kobolds and Catacombs. They left that card in the game for literally a full fucking year before they nerfed it, which is crazy.
Suppose you're running about a third of your deck as Dragon. You're going to, on average, draw 1.5 cards. It means that a majority of the time you're drawing 1 card, but sometimes you're drawing 2 cards, even fewer times you're drawing 3 cards, very occasionally you're drawing 4 cards, but it all averages out to about 1.5. The chances get better the more dragons you have in there as well. And I feel like that's good enough to warrant a slot in the dragon deck. Okay, that math is absolutely correct, by the way. And it turns out that that's not quite good enough. Part of it is also because of meta. The initial review was done assuming a meta of mid-range and control. Wrathion, card advantage machine in a dragon deck? Sure. So you can see why it's rated as a 4-star, and people tried it out. It wasn't quite consistent enough.
It's also, okay, hold on a second. I realized that he did like the re-review after seeing what the metagame was, because obviously no one could have predicted how powerful Patches was going to be. Well, they did, like the Pirate deck, I should say, sorry. This card still sucked. This card's awful.
Not a very good constructed card in my opinion, just because there's so many good options out there for the control style Warlock decks. Having this is like, I don't know. It just seems a bit overkill.
This is a card that I think is just pretty terrible. Like even in Reno, where you want more hard removal, like Siphon Soul, you're only really happy playing this card on turn 10. If you can use the word happy. I don't think you need Blastcrystal Potion. I don't think this is necessary. You would never play it.
Can we just talk about real fast before we continue? Did you guys know that Siphon Soul is 4 mana right now? Isn't that insane?
It's just like a normal card.
Obviously, you go like, wow, Assassinate is not played. Right?
So.
Assassinate is a bad card. 5 mana. Nobody wants to play that card. But you also need to remember that it is on Rogue. Rogues do not need Assassinate because they have a better Assassinate. It's called Sap. So I think this is not a bad card for Reno Lock. I rate this like... It's really close to making this a 4-star, but Reno Lock already has a lot of good cards, so I'll put this at a 3-star. It's a good card. I don't think it's bad.
Dude, Moz is like killing it, man. Moz is really smart. This card saw play. It didn't see play in 2 copies versions, but in Highlander Warlock decks, it did actually see play.
All it takes is 2+1/+1 buffs or 1+2/+2 buff. You're playing a 6 mana 6/6. Draw 2 cards. So I feel like this is going to make, alongside Doppelgangster, make the hand buff mechanic really strong.
Oh man, that's crazy. Okay, card draw back in this day was not good. All right, let's be real here. Like there was some classes just didn't have great ways of drawing. So the logic was if you could buff this card, and they probably thought Grimy Goons was going to be a lot better in hindsight, right? So if you just buff this card, you play it, not only do you get a 6 mana 6/6 or 6 mana 4/6, whatever you want to do, you also drew 2 cards with it, which is a big deal, right? Like if any arena players in chat remember if this card got played, this card was not playing constructive.
If you were just using this to stall the game in order for you to get to the later turns in the game, so again, could be used in either in a control deck or in an aggressive deck where you're just really going all in, though I think it would favor mostly the control style deck.
Whenever you summon a minion, deal 5 damage to your hero.
What
it doesn't
the hell was
even have a drawback
there?
the turn that you play it. Turn that you play it, it's just a 3 mana 5/5. The main problem is in the future turns. That's a really high statted minion. It'll see play in Reno Lock, probably.
Dude, what the hell? Okay, that is wild to me. 3 mana 5/5. Yeah, you're right. This card was kind of like a big statted boy. And we talked about earlier how like they got excited for a 3 mana 3/5. 3 mana 5/5 demon. Sheesh. This card was awful. The problem with this card is it almost always did more damage to you than it did to your opponents. This card was just like, not it. Not it.
Shadow Rager. I guess the Ragers are not done yet.
First of all, we got Freezing Potion. They needed a way to nerf all of the potion-giving cards by throwing in some hot garbage, or cold garbage in this case. Moving on, we have a card that I'm surprised there's been so little discussion about this card. This card worries me so much. Greater Arcane Missiles. Whew. I am surprised that they made this card. Greater Arcane Missiles, compared to an 8 mana deal 10, this is a 7 mana deal 9 on an empty board, and that's if they have no board right and you have no spell power. That alone is like a good card to play in a winning position or at a stalemate position. It's like, how do I describe this? It's like a flame strike that's not dead in control matchups. It just seems nuts to me. Like
what? I guess he's right. Like, if your opponent has nothing on the board and you play a 7 mana deal 9, that's not bad, right? Like, Pyroblast went to 10 mana and it was 10 mana deal 10 damage. So like that card was like, damn, like that's how much 10 damage should cost. So like 7 mana deal 9. Sheesh, bro. Yeah, this card ended up being pretty bad.
If you get to Smork the Face, this turns into a random 6 mana 1/1. I mean, a 6 mana minion. And that's pretty cool, right? Like, it's a little bit understated, it's fine. But the upside of this card, I think, is high enough that you want to play this, right? So I would rate this guy kind of... I want to be very optimistic with this card because 4 mana summon a random 6 cost minion is pretty damn sweet. I would give this 4 stars just because I believe in this. I really believe in cheating the curve, right?
I'm gonna, without even telling you if the card was good or not, I'm gonna tell you guys a small little story here. Okay, I'm gonna tell you guys a little small story. When I first started making the Do You Know Hearthstones, which if you guys don't know what that is, it's basically a series where I get a content creator and I show them a card and I ask them, do you think this card is real? Because I would change like text or the stat number, right? When I was going through older cards in Hearthstone, I didn't think this card was real. Like even seeing it in the Hearthstone card library, I couldn't believe this card was real because I have never in my whole time playing Hearthstone, I have played this game since closed beta. I have never seen this card get played. Okay.
I really believe in cheating the curve, right?
best card in Priest. Oh, baby, it's the best card in Priest. This, I think, is the best card that has been printed for Priest because it is the ultimate enabler. Pint-Size Potion. Oh! Oh! This card is the sickest card. I think this card is amazing. This card is insane. Like, holy fuckamole. Are we serious right now? Is this really happening? Like, I'm not sure this is real life right now. Did we go down the rabbit hole where there's a shitty game designer who's like, you know what? I think Priest needs to win all their games, and they made this? Are we serious right now?
Pint-Size Potion was a good card. He's not wrong, but it wasn't like game winning.
A 3/4 for 3, already the stat line is good, but this, choose a friendly minion, shuffle a copy into your deck. Oh.
Hey, Soulcaster was played in Highlander Mage. Absolutely. Can't remember if it was played anywhere else.
If I were dating an alley cat, I would break up with it and tell it it was me, when it's really the alley cat. Weirdly, I think this card's actually quite good. I think this is quite a good card. Let me stop for a moment. Let me think about what I've just said. Let me think about what I've done. I saw this card. I think this card sucks ass. This is a terrible card. I think this card is awful. Sucks. I think.
So Reno Mage is separated into two categories. Some with the burn version with Inkmaster, some with a more value proposition or a defensive option. Inkmaster Solia didn't end up in every single Reno Mage deck. She's pretty popular, and I think it's a very cool effect. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 4-star rating.
I cannot at all imagine a single situation where this card is good.
Okay, I gotta watch this. I gotta watch this VOD where he's just drunk off his ass. Inkmaster Solia is really interesting because she wasn't like the greatest Highlander card. It's funny to think that mana cheating at this level was not good enough because Inkmaster, in Highlander Mage, you had Reno, you had Kazakus, and you had Solia. Again, I could be wrong, but like I don't remember Solia being like insane, but she definitely saw play.
I also think that this has potential. Actually, wait a fucking minute. Redemption would be better than this anyways. This card sucks. Nope. I take it back. Take it back. Okay, no. I think it's. I'll still put it as like one step above. I'll put it back where it was before.
Getaway Kodo was fine.
I don't think this will be very good. I just don't see the value in this that is better than one of the cheapo guys. Well, I don't know if Brian Kibler's pheromones are in my room or if I just can't stop thinking about him as is.
Okay, so we gotta handle both those things. This card was good. This was like an auto kill card. Like you had to kill. It's like Emperor Thorson almost. Like you had to kill this card. The Brian Kibler the Brian Kibler review, absolutely 100%. Absolutely 100%.
And Kibler's pheromones are in my room, or if I just can't stop thinking about him
everything
as
you just
is.
said, I agree with.
This card is sensational. This is probably the best card we've seen. I think so. I think it's the best card we've seen. I mean, wow, this card is insane.
Ass.
You know, I actually think this might be a fucking ridiculous card. I actually think this card's going to be ridiculous. Not great. I wouldn't run it in any control decks. I think there's a few decks where this is going to be sensational. I think in a Fled Paladin, this is going to be amazing. I think this card's bad. Coin.
Nuts card. Really good card. Really good card.
I think this card's bad. Counterfeit coin. Gain 1 mana crystal this turn only. No, I don't like this. No. I think this is a weak card. I think it's a strictly weak card. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to stop looking at me. I'm going to close my eyes. Oh, thank God I'm not looking at me. Oh, God, I need a drink. Raza the Chained. Oh, this card. Oh, gosh. I don't know. I don't. Okay. I don't think this is great. I really don't think this is great. I don't think this is great.
Raza, okay, before Anduin was introduced, Raza was like an okay card. Like you were sad playing it. This card really started to shake people's hindquarters once Anduin was introduced in Knights of the Frozen.
I don't think this is great.
Holy shit, dude! That's so. We gotta do that next time we do a card review. I'll get fucking wasted for a card review. I think that'd be hilarious. Anyways, it's so fun. It's so fun doing these. I believe David said there's one more episode. Make sure you subscribe.